Welcome to Meet the Experts, the show that introduces you to today's best and brightest thought leaders sharing information to accelerate your success in business and life. Let's get today's show started.
Welcome to Meet the Experts, the show that introduces you to the thought leaders who can impact your business, brand, and bank account. I'm Corey Mosley, your host for today's show. Today's guest is someone who's helping leaders rethink what it really takes to inspire teams and drive results in today's workplace. Joining me is Guy Johnson, founder and owner of Guy Johnson Leadership Consulting Firm. Through keynote talks, workshops, executive coaching, and his signature Strive leadership model, Guy's helping organizations tackle everything from disengaged teams and toxic leadership cultures to leadership gaps and stalled growth at the executive level. Guy, welcome to Meet the Experts.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I was really excited to hear that you were coming on and looking at your background and information. And you've created this particular model here, the Strive leadership model.
Yes, sir.
Why don't we just dive right in and talk about really what sets that apart from, other leadership playbooks that maybe people have seen before?
It's a great question. I retired from the CIA after about 25 years, and I spent the last 15 years running their leadership development program from first-time entry leaders to senior executives, and taking that experience, and my doctorate happens to be in leadership as well. So taking my academic learning along with my real-world experience, I started looking around trying to figure out why it felt like leadership was broken and what was causing such a high rate of disengagement when it came to employees. And so when I did my research, I found that the most successful leaders tend to have a couple of things in common. First, we know about Simon Sinek and to start with why, and purpose is really important and all of that. Mm-hmm. But what about the actual leadership practices needed to be put in place? And so when I looked at those and I just started thinking through them, I found 6 traits that all successful leaders seem to have in common. Okay. And as I was able to put those together, it just kind of came out that it was Strive. So strategic vision is number one. You can't tell anybody where you're going if they don't know where you're going, right?
That's
so
right.
It's about the vision and how you're able to communicate that vision. And I have examples of those, but just to explain the Strive. So it's strategic vision, trust and integrity. Okay. You know how important that is. So that's the T, and they kind of go together. The R is resilience. I don't know if there's ever been a time, maybe during the world wars, but has there ever been a time where resilience was so important? Right now, everything is just in so much chaos. And we look to our leaders for resilience. Like, how do they weather those harder times? Mm-hmm. The I is innovation. We know that innovation is running everything. ChatGPT, AI, it's moving at such an accelerated pace that if you're not innovating as a leader, then you're going to be falling behind. You're going to fail. There's very easy case studies you can look at with Blockbuster versus Netflix, right?
Or
they failed to innovate. The classic example. They failed to innovate. They died. So that's the I. And then the V is valor. Could be courage, executive courage, the ability to speak truth to power and let people speak truth to you. And then the E is the most important, which is empathy. It could be emotional intelligence. It's a component of it. Sure. But the most successful leaders, if you ask somebody, tell me the person who influenced you the most as a leader when you were a kid or when you first went into business or what have you, the thing that they will always have in common is their ability to connect with people. And it's that ability to empathize.
I think that's one of the reasons why, people will love politicians so much, will blindly love, a politician because of how they make them feel and how they communicate there. So I think
absolutely
you're definitely speaking that language. When you were talking about resilience, I help, or I guess talk about you're looking to your leaders. Mm-hmm. I think about simple things. I always say when I'm on an airline, if something's happening like turbulence or something, I look at the flight attendant.
Right.
If she's calm or they're calm, I'm calm.
Okay. Exactly.
Like that leadership comes in so many different ways. It's not always the CEO, right?
Right. It can come from anywhere at any level. And it's a great example. If we hit unexpected turbulence and it feels like the plane just dropped out of the sky for a second, there's nothing like just having that calm voice come over, ladies and gentlemen. We're just experiencing a little bit of turbulence.
That's
Everything is fine. And you just sit back, you rub your ears, you woosah.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm okay.
No, I love that. I love that. So we talked about this Strive plan, which is a really interesting model there. I think the opposite of that now is, what are some of the problems? Like, what, in your opinion, what's the number one leadership mistake that people are making right now? And frankly, how do they fix it?
We see it at every level. that the biggest problem that I've experienced across the board when it comes to leadership is ego. Ego is the greatest pitfall that leaders will run into. And there's a lot of different, Jen Shuriani, I want to say is her name. She wrote the book, it's called Ego versus EQ, and it's fantastic. And it's all about using emotional intelligence to battle your ego pitfalls. But leaders ignore feedback they don't like. So they surround themselves with sycophants that just tell them what they want to hear. Jeff Bezos, for example, he has a no man, and his only job is to tell him no when he wants to do something, because nobody will tell him the truth.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's wild. So how are you going to get the feedback that you need as a leader if people are scared to give it to you? They lose touch with the workforce on the ground actually doing the work because they're up in the balcony looking over things and they forget what it's like to be down on the ground doing the work. It's a lot of these kinds of pitfalls, but it really comes down to ego. So how do we fix that? A lot of coaching. I'm a big fan of executive coaching, and the willingness to do the 360 interviews, the willingness to get the truth tellers to tell you what you might not want to hear. The leaders who fail are the ones who reject the truth that's being told to them and say, I don't really care what you're saying. I'm going to do things my way. But that to me is the single biggest issue that we see in leadership today is ego.
I think that's really interesting because it becomes one of those can't see the picture in the frame moments, but they have to be of the idea that they want to work on themselves, that they want to do better or be a great leader. Because I think of so many that were great or had the potential to be great, but couldn't get out of their own way.
They couldn't get out of their own way.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that it appears you're helping unearth, based on your training and information there.
But it really does come down to they have to be willing to participate in their own rescue.
Yeah.
There's nothing more frustrating. There's nothing more frustrating than we can all sit there and look and say, you are failing. We all see it. And you are so blind to what's actually taking place that you reject the help that's given to you, that I just have to let you go and you're going to fail. And I've seen it time and time again. And it's usually because of their ego. It's in the way.
So they have a breakthrough. They say, you know what? I need to change. I want to improve my culture. Get me Guy Johnson. What's the first thing that you would tell that leader?
I've done this at cabinet levels for the government. We've done offsites where I did this for, she's now, what is she? Anyway, she was the director of national intelligence. I forgot. No, she moved on to something else now. But we did a weekend retreat.
High level.
We'll just say high level, right?
Yeah.
We did a high level retreat where she just wanted to look and analyze the culture of the national intelligence, the entire deal. To answer your question, like the first thing I would do is what we did, which is we sat down and said, let's have a real conversation about where things are today. And it requires such a level of vulnerability and humility on the part of the leader to say, I'm not saying this is broken. What I am saying is we need to improve it. And I need to know where it's broken so that I can make the necessary changes to improve it. So the first thing I do with them when we sit down and talk is we need to do a 360 assessment.
Okay.
We need to know how your team feels about your leadership. I need to know how you feel about what you're doing. And we need to talk to the employees through focus groups or different conversations, different assessment tools that are out there so that you can get a real time picture of what the condition of your culture is. Then we can come up with a curated, tailored game plan on how we're going to address it. And leaders who truly care about their people and really want to succeed will be willing to peel that back and do the work and not take it personally, because nobody's going to get it perfect every single time.
Right.
But are you willing to have that mirror put up to you to see how you're actually performing?
So, you spent 25 years in the government, basically. You mentioned CIA. I know we didn't go deep into that, but enough said there. How is it distinctively different, though? So now you're working with leaders in corporations, in the corporate world. How does that translate, or how is that different in terms of getting them prepared for growth?
It's different because Strive isn't a checkbox exercise. It's not a pyramid that says, if you do these 3 things, you're going to succeed. Strive is a mindset, and it's something that you have to live into on a regular basis. And that's what makes it different. It's not about command and control. It's not about being on top and being a person in authority and demanding everything. It's about humanity. And how do you lead with heart? Because that's what we have to have today. Gallup says that right now, 77% of the workforce is disengaged or actively disengaged. 77%.
That's a big number.
It's
when you're trying to drive
number.
Productivity, We're all trying to create new revenue opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we've created a term now called quiet quitting.
Mm-hmm.
People are just sitting there and they're completely checked out. And what makes this model different is instead of saying, here are the 6 things that you need to do in order to drive production and get those numbers, it's saying if you put people over profits, if you put values first and you live those values, your workforce will respond accordingly, and then your organization will succeed. And it's just a different way of approaching leadership than what we traditionally have done back in our old 1980s style command and control leadership.
I often talk about, there was a time when if your manager wasn't talking to you, that was great news.
Right.
Now people are terrified by the fact that they're not getting feedback,
Absolutely.
No, these are some great points. Before I let you go, again, I'm still fascinated by this Strive model. I think it's so impactful in the marketplace right now.
Thank you.
Maybe, can you share a story of where maybe the leadership model really made a real difference for, a team or a company? Like what results did they see?
There's two stories that I analyzed when I was putting this model together to say, how did this happen? And what were the actions that created the turnaround? The first one was Ford. If you study Alan Mulally, an American icon, he's a friend of mine, Bryce Hoffman, that wrote the book on Mulally's turnaround of Ford. Mm-hmm. When he came in, the first thing he did was set a vision. It was a very simple vision. One Ford, we're going forward. We're going to move together through this thing. But he set the vision. He was very transparent. He said, look, this is where we're failing. And this was when the big 3 automakers were all barreling towards bankruptcy.
Sure.
Through his vision, his transparency, his humanity, his ability to connect with the workforce, his ability to empathize with them and what everybody was going through, he was able to turn Ford around in a matter of a year or two. And they never actually took the government buyout. A lot of people don't realize that. When Obama bought out the different big 3 automakers, Ford said, no, thank you.
They were the only one.
They were the only one. Yeah. And they were able to do that through his leadership. Then after he turns it around, the new person steps in as CEO, and they very slowly just move away from everything that Alan Mulally had built. And now Ford, once again, today is struggling. They're on the verge of bankruptcy again. Their stock value has absolutely plummeted. Their culture has eroded back to the way it was before. Yeah. And it's just a perfect example of what it can look like if effective leadership is not properly maintained. The second one, if you'll humor me, is much more current, which is what's happening with the Washington Commanders. I'm a lifelong Redskins fan. I'm the Commanders fan.
I understand.
I've gone through all of it. I love them to death. The church I go to right now, he's the chaplain for the team. So I still get to see a lot of the players hanging around. Look at what has happened when you had toxic leadership under the old ownership, a toxic work culture, players were checked out. The fans completely abandoned the team. There was a time back when season tickets were the most coveted thing in Washington, D.C. They would say, they did a thing one time where they said, come get free tickets. And they called up everybody who had warrants. And people just showed up and they arrested them. Did you see that?
Yes, I've seen that.
That's how badly people wanted these tickets. It got so bad, they ended up blocking off entire sections of the stadium so they wouldn't look bad on TV because nobody was showing up to the games anymore.
Wow.
The leadership sells. This new leadership comes in. The first thing they do is get transparent. They turn around the culture. They say, this is our vision for the team. We are not going to tolerate this type of behavior. They lead from the top, but they lead with humanity. They connect with the people in the way that the old leadership never did. And in less than 2 years, they have completely transformed that team. They used trust and integrity, empathy. They were courageous, all these elements of Strive. And that's why I say it's not a model. It's a mindset that people can employ if they really want to execute strong leadership.
Yeah. One person can make a difference.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a great way to end. Guy Johnson, thank you for joining us today. And thank you for this valuable conversation. And I'm really excited for all the things you're doing with the Strive model.
I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Pleasure.
For more information on the services that Guy and his team provide, please visit GuyJohnsonConsulting.com. This has been another episode of Meet the Experts, the show that introduces you to the thought leaders that can impact your business, brand, and bank account. I'm Corey Mosley, and I will see you next time.
Thanks for watching Meet the Experts, an exclusive interview series produced by Thought Leadership Studios.